Okey, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan selamat pagi. Okey, marilah kita mulakan majlis ini dengan kitab Al-Fatihah. Bismillah. Okey, baiklah. Selamat pagi semua. Selamat datang ke Siri 5 MGTF KUAT Kuliah Atas Talian. Dan yang saya muliakan Profesor Madya Hasnul Jamal Saidun, pengarah Muzium dan Galeri Tuanku Fauziah USM, yang diraikan TS Dr. Rosalam Che Me selaku speaker kita pada hari ini. Yang saya muliakan juga rakan-rakan di MGTF, para hadirin dan hadirat yang sama-sama join sesi pada pagi ini. Assalamualaikum dan selamat datang. Saya perkenalkan nama saya Dr. Jamil bin Muhammad Kamil, salah seorang fellow penyelidik di Muzium dan Galeri Tuanku Fauziah. Saya akan menjadi moderator anda pada hari ini. Okey, pada hari ini kita akan ada satu sesi kuliah atas talian yang bertajuk Assistive Technology Based on User-Centered Design Approach, Designing for People with Special Needs. Okay, so talk pada hari ini akan disampaikan oleh TS Dr. Rosalam dan saya akan bacakan sedikit sebanyak mengenai biografi beliau. Okay, saya akan bacakan dalam bahasa Inggeris ya. Alright. Dr. Rosalam Che Me is a senior lecturer in the Department of Industrial Design, Faculty of Design and Architecture, Universiti Putra Malaysia, UPM. He's a proud UPM alumnus where he did his Bachelor of Industrial Design and Master of Science in Biocomposite Product Design. In 2013, he pursued his PhD at Politecnico di Milano ataupun Polimi, Italy under the Tenaga Akademik Muda (TAM UPM scheme. During his period abroad, he became a member of Lab IR International Research Group and a committee member of Polyfactory, Polymix Makerspace. He was also hired as a liaison office for Malaysian delegation during several big international events in Milan, such as Salon de Mobile and Milan Expo 2015. Okay, he completed his PhD in 2017 and in the same year, he officially joined the Industrial Design Department as the youngest academic member. He is now a member of EventTech, a research group and an associate researcher for Malaysian Research Institute of Aging, MyAging at UPM. And in 2020, he went for a 6 months industrial attachment at DreamEdge Sdn Bhd, Cyberjaya, after being selected to represent UPM as one of the fellow for CEO at Faculty Program, CFP 2.0, okay, by the Ministry of Education, MOE. And then he was awarded as a technologist, TS, by Malaysian Board of Technologies, MBOT, in the same year. Okay. And he is also a member of Persatuan Pereka Perindustrian Malaysia, PEREKA, and the Pro Team President for Industrial Design Alumni Club UPM, which is also known as a Tareka. And his research interest lies in the area of product design and manufacturing, assistive technology, user-centered design, and design for disabled, computer system for health and biocomposite, and advanced materials. He is currently supervising several postgraduate students from Master of Science and PhD, and has number of publications and intellectual properties, IP, in the similar field of interest. He's a passionate young academic and researcher who always seek for collaboration opportunities with industries, as well as academic and non-academic institutions. He idolized Dieter Rams, David M. Kelly, and Elon Musk for their innovation ideas, and creative yet critical thinking and the business and tech-savvy mindset. Okay, itu adalah sikit sebanyak mengenai TS Dr. Rosalam. Dan tanpa membuang lebih banyak masa, saya mempersilakan MGTF Dr. Rosalam untuk memulakan kuliah pada pagi ini. Persilakan Dr. Rosalam.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and very good morning. Thank you so much, Dr. Jamil, for the introduction. A colleague of mine, Dr. Jamil, I know him for quite some time, but we have never actually physically met, betul tak pernah jumpa lagi. And thank you so much, MGTF, for inviting me over. We have here the director of the MGTF USM, Prof. Hasno Paido. Thank you so much for the invitation again. All right, so today I'll be speaking in both language, Malay and English, and I'm trying my best to actually be a bit casual about the topic, because the topic itself is quite serious. It sounds too academic, and so I'm trying to make it less formal lah. Right. So I think without further ado, I will share my screen now. Okay. Okay, can you see the screen? Right, okay, right. So today the topic of my lecture, okay, as agreed by MGTF, okay, as proposed to Dr. Jamil before, is on the assistive technology based on user-centered design approach, okay. User-centered design approach, or UCD approach lah, okay. So we're going to be looking specifically on how we can actually use this approach or this technique, a design technique, to design product, system or services for disabled people, especially for people with special needs. Okay, we're going to look into this throughout the presentation, right? Okay, the lecture content today, okay, I'll be speaking, or I'll be giving the lecture based on this content. Okay, first is on the introduction. This is more like a self-introduction. And then we're going to look into the user-centered design approach, the UCD itself. And then when you talk about UCD, it's always been linked to the standard that you have to follow. So this one is ISO 13407 that was developed in 1999. And we will see the life cycle as well, because some of the standards has been withdrawn and revised, okay? And there are some new versions of it, okay? And then we're going to be looking into the activities of user-centered design, and then how it relates to the one of the most important evaluation in UCD, which is usability testing. Then we're going to be looking into the life cycle of the standard as well. Okay, and then the next topic, okay, we're going to look in details into the assistive technology itself, and then of course there are several types and categories of assistive technology that we can somehow adapt or apply. Okay, and then the differences between the assistive and adaptive technology, they are somehow intangibly be used together, but there are slightly difference between this term. Okay, and then finally, okay, before we end with the conclusion, we're going to be looking into the case studies, some of the case studies that I have been working throughout my academic career as a researcher as well, and then some of the design concept for the assistive technology, right? Okay, this is just a brief self-introduction. I think Dr. Jamil just now dah baca semua kan, dah introduce me with all this but I'm just going to highlight some of the thing here. So I'm currently, yes, as mentioned, I'm a member of this research group, okay, Invention, Technology and Design Research Group under the Faculty of Design and Architecture, okay, and specifically under the Department of Industrial Design, okay. And then I am currently the associate researcher for My Aging. My Aging is actually an institute under a Kementerian, but now it is based in UPM lah, okay. And then my field of interest / maybe field of expertise as well is on the assistive technology, user-centered design, design for disabled or design for disability, computer-aided system of health or CASH, and then as well as product design manufacturing, as well as biocomposite and advanced material. And currently I have been supervising some of the postgraduate students, and then at the moment I have 2 PhD and 3 masters that I am as a main supervisor, but as a co-supervisor I have a lot more, okay. And then, yeah, as mentioned by Dr. Jamil just now, again, I have been selected as one of the CEO from the CEO at Faculty Program 2.0, and I managed to had this industrial attachment for 6 months actually in Dream Age Sdn Bhd that is based in Cyberjaya. Okay, but because it happened last year, so during that 6 month period of time, we couldn't actually be physically 6 months in that because of the MCO and everything. So more or less, I managed to be physically at the office maybe around 3 months. But again, I could learn a lots of things because me as a lecturer, a young lecturer. Okay, after I finished my bachelor degree in 2010, and then I continued straight for my Masters of Science in Biocomposite Product Design. I did it under this one institute called Institute of Tropical Forestry and Forest Product in TROP, and I work on the biocomposite material. And then I managed to work for few years between 2000. I think 2010, 2013, okay, before I actually continued my PhD. I managed to work in the industry for a few hours, but I think that experience was not enough. That's why I decided to actually join the CEO at faculty program because that program somehow allow me to be able to know what's happening in the industry. So Alhamdulillah, and I was actually attached at the Dream Age in Berhad. Dream Age, kalau siapa yang tahu, Dream Age is actually a leading company that is currently lead the project of new national car project and NCP. So during my attachment, I got the chance to actually get involved directly with that project, and the project is still going on. Kalau nak tahu lebih boleh PM tepi, but it's PNC lah, right? Okay, okay, I think that's part of the introduction of myself. Okay, let's moving on to the topic lah. Okay, so user-centered design. This is the topic that we're going to be discussed today, right? So by definition, okay, UCD or user-centered design is actually an iterative design process in which designers. I can hear some noises in the background. Is it mine or okay? UCD is actually an iterative design process in which designers focus on the users and their needs in each phase of the design process. Meaning to say that, okay, dia adalah proses berulang, okay, dalam design proses, dalam proses kita membangun produk, di mana tujuan utamanya adalah designer ataupun researcher ataupun whoever that works within the design development, they have to really make sure that the users are in the core of the design process. This is the fundamental idea of the design UCD, okay? And in the UCD process, it outlines the phases throughout the design and development life cycle, all while focusing on gaining a deep understanding on who will be using the product. So meaning to say, if you were to develop systems, services, or design, any kind of design, we have to have, you have to make sure that you have this very deep understanding. You have to have this kefahaman on what kind of product that is suitable to be used by the specific user that you are targeting on. So for example, if you're targeting on people with disability, what kind of disability, and then you will understand, you have to understand what kind of issues, what kind of limitations, what kind of disabilities of that person, of that user, for you to develop something, for you to design something. So here, the importance of you to actually understand the users is really important, right? And then, okay, just before I proceed with the next slide, okay, you can see, okay, user-centered design, the word center is being spelled that way. Kalau boleh perasan, it is spelled, sometimes you can see that the word center can be spelled as C-E-N-T-E-R ataupun C-E-N-T-R-E. Betul tak? But this one, I purposely use user-centered design. It is being spelled this way because the ISO standard that we're going to be looking later on in the next slide, it was developed in UK, so it is spelled this way. So this is actually the UK punya spelling lah, right? But it used interchangeably. You can use according to your preference. Kalau US is center, okay. Kalau UK is center. So this is how it's spelled lah, right? Okay, so this is the standard that I've been mentioning just now. This is ISO 13447, and it was developed in 1999. Okay, and then in this standard, okay, the standard describe four different aspects in this standard that you have to when you use this. Okay, you have to really take into consideration of all these four aspects. Okay, the first one is the rationale of UCD, the rationality or the relevant of using the this approach. Okay, and then the second one is about the planning and execution of UCD, the planning, management, and execution of UCD process. Okay, and then the third one is the principles of the design aspects or the philosophies of UCD. Okay, and then the final one. Okay, this is actually one of the things that when you talk about UCD, people always relate to this one. This is activities of UCD, activities of user-centered design. This is this kind of activities. These activities actually been explicitly described dekat dalam standard tu. Dalam standard tu memang di highlight on this one. Okay, so we're going to be looking into details about all this aspect lah. Okay, the first one, okay, the rationale. So basically, the rationality, I mean, one of the aspects of this UCD, we have to look at the rationality. Whether or not it benefits the usable system provides. So when you are providing something, when you are conceptualizing or developing an idea or a concept design, so we would like to see how it can actually benefit the users out of it. So when you look at the benefits, you can see or you can understand how relevant or how practical that system or services are for them. Okay, so for example, the system can reduce the training and support costs. It can improve user satisfaction and productivity of the user. So this is about the rationality. Okay, and then the second one, the second aspect is on the principle. So in this standard, it's described four principles, and these principles are not bound to any specific phase of the development cycle, meaning to say that the principle can be used in any way, in any circumstances. Maknanya dia tak perlu tertakluk kepada mana-mana phase, because when you develop something, when you develop a design, okay, in the development cycle, there's always a phase that you have to follow, kan? So principle ni dia tak tertakluk kepada mana-mana phase lah. Okay? It can be used in any phase, for example. Okay. The first one is active involvement of users and a clear understanding of user and the task requirement. So active involvement. So when this is like the main principle or the main idea of UCD itself. You have to get the user involved in the design process. Okay. Lepas ni kita akan tengok how it is different from co-designing, co-creation or participatory design, because those are also involving the users, kan? Tapi there are some differences, of course. Okay. So in this case, active involvement of users are really important. That's why a clear understanding of users and the task requirement should be highlighted first in the very beginning of the process. Okay. Secondly, the appropriate allocation of functions between users and technology. Okay, you have to understand what kind of, if you're developing a technology, for example, what kind of function and specs or features that is suitable to be used, that is usable for the users. Okay, and then of course the UCD itself, the process is actually an iteration design solution. Okay, nanti kita akan tengok juga what's the difference between iteration and spiral design process. Okay, and of course the last principle is it involves the multidisciplinary design, because when you develop something, like for example us as designer, okay, we need someone, for example, from the engineering background who knows how to do programming. Okay, we need someone from the technical background, someone who's expert or well versed in programming. And also if you're applying, okay, that design for another application or marine, for example, marine or medicines or agriculture, so you have to get people from those areas to involve. So that's why UCD, by its principle, it says that it is a very multidisciplinary kind of design approach, right? So the next one is on the planning. Planning is about the planning, the management, and execution. So guidance in fitting UCD activities into the overall system development process. So as I mentioned just now, okay, the activities of UCD, which is I'm going to explain further later on, is something that is stated very explicitly in the design, in this standard. Okay. So in this planning part, okay, project plans should reserve time and resources for iteration and user feedback. So meaning to say, in every kind of stages or in every kind of phase of the design process, dia kena ada some break for you to analyze, for you to evaluate and analyze. So for you to understand and for you to identify what you should do next. So dia tak boleh berterus-terusan. That's why planning is really important. And of course, in planning, the importance of teamwork and communication is something that is highlighted in the standard, something that you have to really look into, right? Right. So the next one on the aspects of ISO 13407 that was developed in 1999 is the activities of UCD. And then this is actually the core of the standard, right? So what is actually the UCD, the activities of UCD? So in these activities of UCD, it's been described using this diagram. This is actually an iterative design process, but it's actually a spiral design. So kalau iteration kan completely follow again the loop kan. Tapi kalau spiral, it's not following the loop, but it's actually iteration process. We're going to have a look at that later on, right? So in these activities of user-centered design, okay, first, okay, by going through these phases, by going through this cycle, first, the experimenters or the researchers or the lead, the principal investigators, when they are developing something, design, services, or anything related to the design concept, first they need to really understand, to identify the need for human-centered design. Why you use this kind of approach? Kenapa pakai approach ni? Because there are so many other design approach that you can somehow adopt and somehow apply. But why are you using this one? So you need to understand first the need of using this human-centered design. Okay, it is actually called either way lah. It can be called human-centered design or user-centered design. It's the same thing actually. But human is in the broader term, right? So the first one, the first ever phase is on the understanding and specify the context of use. Okay, in this phase of the design process, the researcher, they are ought to actually understand the user, okay, the environment of use, and the task that he or she uses the product for. So this is actually very important stage, right? Because the understanding of the user capability, the limitation, the disability and whatnot, it's really important for you to identify the context of use. The keyword here is context of use. How the device or how the product can be used by the user specifically. Okay, and then moving on to the next phase is on the specification of the user and organizational requirement. Okay, here in this process, you are ought to actually determine the success criteria of usability for the product in terms of user task. Okay, so for example, how quickly a typical user should be able to complete a task with the product. This is something to do when you are developing a system or something. Because, okay, kita akan tengok juga nanti on the usability testing. But one of the principle of the that is mentioned here is on the kita nak tengok sama ada produk tu usable ke tak. Kita tengok sama ada produk tu practical ke tak. We want to see whether or not the product is easy to be used. Okay, so that's why at this stage it's really important to understand the parameters, the variables, the parameters of your experiment when you are conducting experiment. Okay, and then after that, okay, you propose a design solution. You produce a design solution. So usually when you talk about this user-centered design, okay, the incorporation of human computer interaction knowledge such as visual design, instruction design, and usability, it's really common that we somehow incorporate this into the design solution. All right. Okay. And then the last part is actually somehow in the final stage of the design process or activities is the evaluation or the validation. Okay. So here it says here, evaluate design against requirement. Okay, so meaning to say that this is where we conduct the experiment, we conduct this validation, we conduct this kind of we're going to be looking into some of the techniques to collect data, analyze later on. But this is the process that we want to make sure if the device or if the system or if this is design that we propose to somehow meets the requirement of the users or not. This is the determination point. And then finally, dekat sini, if the system satisfies the specific user and a consumer organizational requirement, meaning to say the system or design proposed is a success. Kalau tak, if it's not success, we're going to have actually to repeat again all the process, because these activities of UCD is actually an iterative design process juga, sama je. Okay, right. So like I mentioned just now, it is important for you to actually, when you use this design approach, for you to understand the context of users. Okay, one of the things that we have to remember is that how we can actually involve the users throughout the design cycle. Okay, and then it has been suggested by Prince et al. Okay, in their study back in 2002. So they suggested some of the techniques that you can use to involve the users in the design process. Okay, there are so many techniques that he proposed, that they proposed in the study. Okay, like for example, background interviews and questionnaire, and that happened in the beginning of the design project. So in the very early stage of the design project lah, and then it followed by sequence of work interviews and questionnaire, and that also happened in the early stage. Okay, and then you can see through this list: focus group, on-site observation, role playing. Okay, and then you can see here, okay, there is this one technique called usability testing. Usability testing is like the beauty of the UCD itself. When you talk about UCD, people always relate to the usability testing, usability test. Okay, and this happened when in the design cycle, it happened in the final stage. So kalau kita tengok balik dekat yang cycle tadi tu, okay, the activities of UCD, the evaluation against the requirement too, we can use several of these stages. But what's important, the final one is actually the usability testing. And then after that, of course, you can follow by some qualitative data collection, like questionnaire, like interviews, and some observation as well. That's for the final stage. But okay, kita akan tengok lebih detail on the usability testing, right? Okay, so this it is highlighted here. Okay, usability testing, and it happens in the final state. Right. So what is actually usability testing? Usability testing is actually a technique to evaluate a product or service by testing it with the representative users. Okay, you have a product that you develop for a specific users. So this technique or this experiment will only work if you include the actual users into your experiment. If you're not including those people who are actually going to use your product, that is not, it cannot be called usability testing. That is the fundamental idea of it, right? So it is actually also an essential skill for usability practitioners. So who are the usability practitioners? Basically, the usability practitioners are the professional whose primary goal to provide guidance to product developers for the purpose of improving the ease of use of their product. So selalunya, okay, when we talk about the usability testing, people always relate in terms of the ease of use ataupun how friendly that product, system or services are. We will somehow one of the key points to evaluate ataupun to measure in this testing is actually nak tengok keberkesanan in terms of the ease of use ataupun user friendly, right? Okay, and then the primary goal or the primary objective of this usability testing is of course to improve the usability of a product. So if it's happened throughout the design process, the usability testing will tell you whether or not the design system or services should be improved again, because it's not going to be end there. So after usability testing, it's not going to end there. You have to do some improvement. Okay, so this is the goal. All right. So here, it asks about why you conduct a usability test. So these are some of the main reasons for you to do or to conduct a usability test. The first one, to uncover problems in the design, of course, okay, and the secondly, to discover opportunities to improve the design, okay, and to learn about the users' behavior and preference. So when you conduct this kind of technique or this kind of usability testing, we can understand something that somehow other techniques cannot be gained, okay, especially on the behavior and preferences of that user. So this is actually very important things for you to improve the design throughout the design cycle, right? Okay, and then this is also about the practical guide, and this practical guide was somehow reported back in 1999 by Dumas JS, and Redis J. It's not a typo. Dumas JS, maybe there are brothers that using the same name. That's why it repeated that way. Okay, so in the practical guide reported by this scholar, okay, they actually identify a few steps or a few guides that a practitioner, uh, to follow when you're using the usability testing. So the first one, okay, the first key practical guide is the participant should be the real user. Okay, as I mentioned many times, okay, when you involve, when you do the usability testing towards the users, the participants or the respondents, okay, or the feedback should came from the actual users, the real users, meaning to say whoever that going to be using the product, system of services, okay. And then of course, secondly, when they are the real users, they are ought to actually do the real task, okay. And then here, in the usability testing, we're going to be looking at the observation, and we have to record what participants do and say at the same time, okay. You have to actually know what they prefer. We have to somehow look into the behavioral study and stuff like that, okay. And of course, analyze data, diagnose problems, and recommend changes to fix problem. This is for the future recommendation, or this is for the improvement purposes, okay. And results are used to change the product and the process. Of course, when you conduct a usability testing, as I mentioned, it's not the end of the design cycle, okay. There are a lot more things to do, and this is actually a very important data that you gain as a designer for you to improve the design process as well as the whole concept of the product. So that's why it should happen repeatedly in the design process, okay. Okay, so this is just some idea how you can actually conduct usability testing by following this simple step. First, you plan the test, and then you draft about the test, when the parameters, the variables, and what to measure, okay. And then secondly, to recruit the participant, and you have to understand that when you get involved in the usability testing, the participant should be the real person or the real users, okay. And the numbers of the users or the numbers of the participants are actually depending on how easy or availability of that participant as well. Okay, tapi kalau boleh, if possible, you can try to increase the numbers of the participants according to the numbers that when you do, for example, a survey, and when you do survey, um, the effect size of that survey should actually represent the numbers of that population. For example, if you are conducting a research towards the USM students, kan? USM industrial design students. So, for example, in one batch you have 40 students, and time 3 batch you have 120, 4 batch 160 students. So you have to select a number of participants that represent the whole population. Okay, tapi dia tak ada specific number berapa orang, but you have to somehow do that kind of consideration lah. It can be as low as even 2 or 3, right? As long as the participants are the actual users. Okay, and of course the third step is to prepare the materials. You have to set up the apparatus or the environment, and then you conduct the test, analyze data, and then you can come up with the report, right? Okay, we're going to be looking into this as well. This is something quite interesting for us to explore further. Sorry. Okay, this diagram or this design research map, it was developed by Liz Sanders or Elizabeth Sanders back in 2009, 2011. And this was actually first published in WE Design Office. Okay, one of the somehow very kind of established design website lah. All right, and since 2011, many researchers have been using this kind of map for them to identify or for them to actually locate where their design approach is. Okay, I think some of us here pun quite familiar with this map ataupun diagram kan. Okay, so in this diagram it is subcategorized or it's been segmented into 4 segments. You can see on the top there is design led. Okay, down there is the research led. On the right side, participatory mindset, which is users as seen as partners. This is more like a co-creators or co-designing. And then on the left side, expert mindset, users seen as a subject. So they are actually the expert. So users seen as a subject and they are the reactive informers. So when you look into this section, okay, the top left corner, okay, the top left corner, when you involve the design-led and expert mindset, so the research approach is going to be design-led with expert mindset, okay, and then moving on to the second one, the second top the top right corner, okay, it is design-led with participatory mindset, all right, and then the top down, sorry, the down left corner, all right, on this side, research led with expert mindset, and then on the below right corner, research led with participatory mindset. So when you look at this map, okay, we can try to imagine dekat mana where we can actually locate our design approach ataupun design technique that we usually use. For example, co-creation, co-designing, participatory design, UCD, usability testing, the Scandinavian kind of method and stuff like that. So dekat mana kita tengok kan? So okay, so when we go further, okay, this is where these standards actually locate this kind of approach. Boleh tengok okay. So UCD is actually somehow derived or located in this one. So it is more like a expert mindset with user with research like, meaning to say expert here is actually the subject. Okay, so we need to say that it is very user oriented lah. Okay, and of course in this kind of area ataupun kind of subject, it involves other approach as well, such as usability testing as one of the UCD approach, contextual inquiry, lead user innovation, applied ethnography, ataupun human factor diagramming. So they are all here. Tapi yang sebelah sana, okay, when you talk about co-designing, co-creation, it is more on that side, okay, which is on the design-led and participatory mindset ataupun research-led with participatory mindset. Okay, so now kita nampak clear dekat mana letaknya UCD ni dan dekat mana letaknya participatory design. Alright. Okay, so as I mentioned just now, the ISO standard that has been described just now on the usability testing and all has been actually revised, has been actually withdrawn, okay, and revised to a new version. So the new standard that has been developed is actually this one, ISO 9241, and it was developed in 2010. It's on the ergonomics of human system interaction, and the part 210, it talks about the human-centered design for interactive system. Okay, and in this specific kind of standard, it says ataupun it's described about requirements and recommendation for human-centered design principles and activities throughout the life cycle of computer-based interactive system. It is intended to be used by those managing design processes and is concerned with ways in which both hardware and software components of interaction system can enhance human system interaction. So meaning to say that the one that have been described just now, the ISO 3407, I mean, that is actually the fundamental of that UCD, and it follows by that standard, but it has been withdrawn and revised to this version. Tapi dia punya principle is still the same. Okay, the principles, the aspects of UCD is still the same. And then again, okay, according to this life cycle, the stages of evaluation, previously we have this ISO 13407 that was developed in 1999. And then after that, it has been developed, it has been withdrawn, then revised into ISO 9241 and developed in 2010. And then it's been revised again and currently almost finished, the revision almost finished. ISO 9241, also the chapter of 210, and it's developed starting from 2019. So one, it is fully revised and published. The current one, okay, will be withdrawn juga lah. The ISO 9241 ni akan be withdrawn juga. So you can actually tengok, you can actually have a look in details about this ISO standard at this website lah. ISO standard. You can see and you can even purchase. If you were to look into details about this standard, you have to purchase, right? Because it's not free lah. You cannot get it. Tapi like for example ISO 13407 ni, because it's been developed late in the 90s. Okay, so dah banyak scholar, dah banyak researcher yang buat perbandingan, dah banyak buat somehow descriptive study on that specific standard. Tapi untuk yang coming, the newer version of that standard has not been done yet. Okay, mungkin in the future, or maybe you can also do your own kind of descriptive analysis paper for this revised version of the standard. It's going to be a good paper. Alright. Okay. This is kita nak tengok pula the relation between the UCD or user-centered design with other design principles, right? So bila kita gunakan user-centered design approach, selalunya it involve the community or the society or whoever that is going to be benefit from this design approach. Okay, so the society or community is actually expected to include the disabled people before any major design to be made. Selalunya people with disability, people with special needs, they always been neglected in the major design process. So kita tak nak that to happen. Okay, so for that it is somehow interrelated with another design principle which is called inclusive design. And inclusive design, by its principle, it says that it should include or address the needs of the widest possible numbers of consumers. So if you are designing something, like I said, it can be built environment, architecture, building, service, design, or system, that something that you produce or propose should actually involve the widest possible numbers of users. Okay, dia tak boleh scope kepada someone with full capability, full physical capability. So you should actually involve the disabled people as well. So that's why this principle is interrelated with UCD. Okay, and also the main principle, the first one, the first principle of inclusive design, it says here, people is at the heart of the design process. Dia sama juga macam UCD. Dia letakkan people, dia letakkan user in the center of the design process. And you have to acknowledge the diversity and differences, okay? Because ID ni ataupun inclusive design is more about the disability, okay? Provide choices, flexibility of use, and convenient environment for everyone. So because it talks about this disability, right? So okay, bila kita cakap pasal UCD that somehow interrelated with inclusive design, we talking because I am a designer and design researcher and academics at the same time. So we always talk about the design and technological involvement in our everyday practice lah kan. So as a designer, as a researcher, kita nak tengok sama ada how design and technology could help the people with special needs, okay, the disabled people. So when we talk about this is actually the main principle of assistive technology. Okay? The assistive technology is somehow about technology that can assist people to do what they cannot be done otherwise without the device. Okay, so sekarang ni kita akan tengok pula apa itu assistive technology. Okay, so by definition, by O.D. Cochrane, 1994, so assistive technology is actually a device, system or tool, it can be anything, system or tool, that increases the physical functioning or independence of person with disability. Okay, and then it allows individual to perform a task that they would otherwise be unable to do because they have this disability, they have this difficulty, they have all this limitation. So if they don't have the device to help them, they cannot be doing the normal things that they do. Okay, and then the principle of UCD, the principle of assistive technology, has been stated by World Health Organization back in 2010. It should enable and promote the inclusion and participation, especially for persons with disability, aging population, and people with non-communicable diseases. So non-communicable diseases is something like very special needs lah. Okay, so it goes along with UCD. It goes along with inclusive design, as I mentioned just now, right? Okay, so when you look into this assistive technology, of course, there are several types of them. Okay, tapi macam tu lah. I mean, assistive technology, it can be any form of technology actually. So it can be no tech, okay, it can be low tech, it can be high tech. For example, when you talk about this braille, okay, the braille or braille punya methods of reading for the blind people kan. So it can be as easy as no tag at all, and then you can involve some integrate some what do you call that technology to make it a low tech kind of version, and then you can also make it as a very high tech by advancing the incorporation of technology. So the assistive technology can be no tech, low tech, or high tech. Okay, you can see some of the example. For example, in high tech, it's about this speech recognition software, speech generating devices, speech prompter, or mobile devices with specialized apps, something like that, right? So also there are some categories of assistive technology or categories for the solution, right? So it can be about vision, hearing, speech communication, okay, speech communication prompter kind of technologies that I mentioned just now, learning, cognition and developmental, mobility, seating and positioning, daily living, environmental adaptation, vehicle modification and transportation, computers and related peripherals, recreation, sports and leisure. So there are so many types and there's so many categories of assistive technology. Okay, right. Okay, and then, okay, when you talk about assistive technology, some people quite confused ataupun some people be mistaken between these two terminology, assistive technology ke adaptive technology, because these terms are used interchangeably. Okay, sometimes it is called assistive technology, sometimes it is called adaptive. But actually, these two terms of technology are interrelated because assistive technology by definition is actually the umbrella term for the wide range of systems and devices or just any equipment that helps people with disability. Okay, sometimes it is called assistive technology, sometimes it is called additive equipment lah. It's the same thing. So basically, additive technology ataupun additive equipment is actually a subcategory of assistive technology. Okay, so that caters a more specific needs or more specific disability of that scope. Okay, contohnya macam adaptive car equipments or screen readers, on-screen keyboards, electronics, painting devices, and something that is very specific. Okay, macam contoh macam kita buat rumah, okay, kita nak tambah assistive technology on the hand railing, okay, that is very specific ataupun a special kind of feature in the car that helps disabled people to drive. So that is very specific. Then we can call it as a additive equipment ataupun additive technology, right? Okay, so again, when you talk about this assistive technology, it always been related to people with disability because we want to improve that capacity of that ni lah to the people. So disability by definition is actually any condition of the body or mind or impairment that makes it more difficult or for the person with the condition to do certain activities. Okay, so when we talk about these activities, it is actually related a lot with activities of daily living. So activities of daily living is actually a term used to collectively describe fundamental skills required for independently care for oneself. So meaning to say that person can be called as a normal person only if they can manage to do the activities of daily living by themselves, right? But of course, there are some types of um, ADLS ataupun activities of daily living. So, like for example, we have this basic ADLS ataupun BADLS. So the basic ADLS is about ambulating, the ability to move around, the mobility, the ability to feed themselves, the ability to dress, to get dressed, to undress, the personal hygiene, continence. Okay, continence is about the control of bowel and bowel function, something like that. Okay, and toileting to clean themselves after each session, right? So the second types of IDLS pula is instrumental IDLS. So instrumental IDLS ni dia lagi spesifik lah, yang require the person with disability to do more tasks at the same time. Okay, for example, transportation and shopping, going for a shop, going for a cinema, going for social activities. Okay, managing their finances, shopping and meal preparation. Okay, house cleaning and home maintenance, managing communication with others, as well as managing medication. So these are more specific kind of ADLS. That's why it is called instrumental ADLS. Right. Okay. Now we're going to move into some of the case studies that I've been working on, okay, previously throughout my academic career as a researcher, as well as some of the projects that have been together developed with my students, with my postgraduate students. Okay, the first one we're going to be looking into this case study. Okay, the title is actually WHAN. WHAN is actually stand for Wearable Haptic Feedback Navigational Assistance for Elderly with Dementia. Okay, so the problems or the issues raised in this research is on how we can actually help ataupun encourage or motivate the active life among the elderly, because maintaining active life can preserve the physical and mental health in elderly with dementia. So the research that we talk about at the moment, okay, the research was conducted towards the older adults or elderly that have this cognitive impairment, that have these problems in the brain, okay, and it is highly associated with this neurodegenerative disease called dementia. Dementia due to Alzheimer's disease. Okay, sometimes it is called dementia, sometimes it is called Alzheimer's disease. Why it is called that way? Because there are so many types of dementia actually. Dementia is actually an umbrella term. So dalam tu kita ada dementia, kita ada Alzheimer's disease, kita ada Parkinson, kita ada vascular diseases. Tapi dalam dementia, Alzheimer's disease represents 60% of the total cases. So that's why when you talk about dementia, people relate as well with AD ataupun Alzheimer's disease. So kita punya issue that we raise here is the performance of physical leisure activities involve stable mobility and spatial navigation. So kita nak minta diorang, kita nak motivate these people to actually maintain their active lifestyle. But at the same time, people with disability, people with this kind of accessibility, okay, elderly ni, mereka kehilangan, okay, they have this disability in terms of mobility, and at the same time the spatial navigation. Okay, dia tak tahu, sometimes they get lost in the times and space. Okay, so the main research question raised in this research is how to provide the possible solution in facilitating the wayfinding of elderly with dementia from the design and technological perspective. Because of course we are designers, kita nak tengok daripada design perspective, macam mana kita nak help, or how we can actually provide some sort of assistance to help this elderly with dementia to go around their area, to go around their environment. Macam mana kita nak tolong? Okay. Okay. The main research objective, sorry, this is main research objective, bukan question. So the main research objective is to actually to understand the decline of wayfinding ability in elderly with dementia in order to find the possible way to assist improve it. So sebelum kita nak tahu macam mana kita nak provide the solution, we have to understand this wayfinding disability dulu, the problem of the users, right? Okay, so when we talk about the mobility is actually an ability or a capacity for you to move independently and safely from one place to another. That is mobility lah. And when we talk about mobility, it relates to wayfinding, it relates to navigation, okay, the ability to go around the area, okay. Tapi people with the dementia, okay, because they are old and they have this problem, they are highly associated with this kind of problem. It is called spatial disorientation. So spatial disorientation is actually a problem, okay, the inability to orient or to move around the environment as a result of focal brain damage. So they got lost in time. So because of this problem, they have the impact linking of landmarks and routes. So making them lost even in the familiar. So kalau tempat yang tak familiar lagi lah, okay, they got lost in both space and time. So when this happen, it affects the daily life, okay, the poor performance of activities of the living, increasing the burdens of the caregiver, and then when that happen, it may cause to institutionalization. Maksudnya dia akan dibawa ke hospital lah, dia akan dibawa ke institut ataupun dibawa ke hospital untuk dijaga, okay. And then again, this special disorientation, it makes worse, okay, it worsen according to the age and as the disease progress. So bila kita makin tua, special disorientation makin teruk, dan bila age to progressing, dia akan jadi lagi teruk, right? So we're going to look into that. Okay. Okay, so when we talk about wayfinding, when we talk about navigation, the most important thing that we have to consider is the sensory acuity. Okay, the acuity ataupun what we call it in Malay, tahap kebagusan sesuatu sensory itu. Okay, the sensory acuity, right? So, for example, normal people or people without disability, they tend to rely profoundly on visual. While persons with visual impairment, they depends on auditory and vestibular and proprioceptive. This is something to do with the balance and everything lah. So maksudnya kat sini, orang yang buta, orang yang tak boleh lihat, dia akan depends on other sensory, which is the most common one is the hearing lah. Okay. Tapi elderly with dementia, they manifest the sensory changes similar to senescence. Senescence is actually biological aging. Maknanya dia menua, people with disability, people with dementia, they get older just like other normal elderly. So this is senescence lah. So because of that, okay, when you look at to this graph number 1 on the left side, is on the prevalence of vision and hearing. Kita tengok in terms of the vision and hearing, when they get older, okay, dia punya prevalence tu lagi tinggi, okay. And then other sensory as well, okay. When you look into this graph, second one, when you get older, the sensory acuity get deteriorated, akan lagi teruk, okay. Normal sensory acuity, mild to moderate sensory impairment until the severe. So maksudnya dia lagi lama dia lagi teruk lah, okay. Alright, so this is to compare, okay. The most affected sensory ataupun sensory yang paling banyak terkesan bagi orang tua ataupun orang tua yang nyanyuk ni ataupun orang tua dengan dementia ni adalah vision and hearing. And then it follows by taste and smell. And then after that, touch, vibration and pain. Tapi at the same time, the most needed sensory for wayfinding adalah vision and hearing. And then followed by touch and smell. So macam mana kita nak develop something, okay, how we can actually develop a device or technology or system that is not using this vision and hearing, because vision and hearing is the most affected one kan. Kalau kita nak design something that use vision and hearing, it's not practical for them, betul tak? Because they have the problem. They have the problem of vision and hearing, okay. Okay, so this is what we came across after several literature review, some apa ni, interview, some data collection. So okay, we talk about the other sensory that we can use for the navigation or wayfinding. So it is actually on the sense of touch. All right. So the advantage of sense of touch is implicit memory for haptically explored object is preserved in individuals with mild dementia. Implicit memory as compared to explicit memory. Implicit memory ni adalah memory yang kita selalu buat dan tanpa sedar. Contohnya macam when we are driving towards, when we driving to a familiar place or familiar destination, we don't have to actually look into this map navigation because kita dah biasa, kita hari-hari lalu kan. So that is actually called implicit memory. As compared to the explicit, something that you explore newly lah. Okay, so something that you familiar with. Okay, for the people with mild dementia, the haptically explored object is preserved. Maknanya they still can have the sensation of haptic. Tapi untuk mereka yang mild dementia. Okay, and then also the second one, patients in the early stage of dementia, they maintain intact haptic priming. So this is actually conducted using the speeded naming task. For example, the study was conducted towards the group of dementia patients. Okay, dia bagi objek and then dia suruh participants tu teka apa projek ni. Okay, tapi dia akan bagi secara laju lah, dia speeded task. Okay, so this ataupun dia bagi sensation, dia bagi cucuk jarum ke dekat dia punya jari ataupun dekat bahagian badan dia. Dia akan minta, dia rasa kat mana, dia akan minta patient tu rasa sakit tu dekat mana. Okay, so these people with dementia, they have the ability to translate, okay, they translate the sensory, but they can sense. Contohnya macam dia nampak, okay, dia nampak this glass of water, okay, this glass of air, dia tahu it's actually air, tapi dia tak tahu apa benda namanya. They cannot translate that. So that's the problem of people with dementia. Okay, but skin and tactile perceptions as a medium to convey information is very beneficial, especially when visual and auditory sensory are weakened. Kalau kita tak boleh pakai visual, tak boleh pakai auditory sensory, skin ataupun tactile perception is the best actually way to convey information, right? So in this stage, kita nak tengok, kita nak explore on the haptics for assistive navigation as well as the aspect of wearability, right? So this is actually somehow the initial design concept that was developed. Okay, so the design concept was actually to it's in the form of wearable lah. Okay, and in the first ataupun initial stage, kita nak tengok dekat bahagian mana yang paling tak non-obstructive. Okay, there is this study by Galeri et al. Back in I think 1998. So in the study, they have somehow formulated ataupun proposed which part of the body that is the most suitable to place the assistive devices, the most unobstructive. Bahagian mana yang paling tak berganggu lah. Okay, because you have to remember that when you design something for wearable technology, you have to remember that we integrate that technology into our body. So we have to somehow put into consideration which part of the body yang tak obstructive for the movement. Okay, so the device was initially proposed to be placed onto the body, and then they provide the sensation of the vibration that can be translated into haptic, right? So the first, these are some of the proposed area on the shoulder, on the waist, on the thighs, on the heels or soles lah. Tapi according to the study by Galeri tu ada banyak lagi location kan. Cuma yang ni kita tengok yang paling sesuai, right? So the information given to the users when the users wear this device, okay, the information provided is very simple, to go left and right and to go forward saja. Sebab kita tak nak confusekan people with dementia with so many information. Because people with dementia, one of the difficulties that has been highlighted by the medical people is they are unable to learn new things or let alone new technology lah. So if you were to ask them to do or to learn something new, it may like require them quite some time, almost forever. So that's why kalau kita nak implement a technology for these people, you have to remember that you have to remember that the technology should be very simple. It involves ataupun it provide the simplest communication atau simplest information, alright, as possible. So in this preliminary study, preliminary assessment, kita tengok in terms of the punya demographic of respondent, acceptability, variability, setting suitability, disability, and general concept. So what I want to highlight here on the variability lah. So daripada study tu, daripada that preliminary assessment, kita dapat tahu the most preferred position to place the device, variable device, is on the waist and the shoulder. So from there, kita develop the first prototype. Okay, the first prototype, as you can see on the left side here, kita letak tactile display. Tactile display is actually the area where we put the actuators, the vibration motors. So they can give the vibration sensation, they can bagi the tactile sensation ataupun haptic sensation. Okay, and then all the components is equipped in the hard case. So the first position proposed was on the shoulder, and the second position proposed was on the waist. Okay, as you can see from this diagram, right? And then we conducted the first usability testing, and then the first usability testing pun ada banyak phase juga. Okay, the first phase was on the orientation training. So the first in this first phase, the subjects recruited was 10. Okay, this is based on the actual test that we conducted before, and I actually conducted this research or this test when I was doing my PhD back in Polimi in Milan. So these are the real data based on that. Okay, so in the first phase, kita nak tengok subject punya reactions and acceptance toward that haptic sensation. Okay, and then when they can actually sense the sensation, they have to indicate the haptic signal where in the position. Then they have to do a short walk lah. Okay, and then after that, the second phase is on the navigation test. So this is actually based on the actual route as well. Okay, we propose 2 routes, 1 and 2, and then we make the users or the participant to wear the device and walk around the designated route, and then they have to take the turn. Okay, they have to make the correct turn when they sense that haptic on their body. Okay, and the participant here was reduced to 6. Okay, daripada 10 reduced pada 6 because yang lagi 4 tu tak lepas the first phase. Okay, so reduced to 6. And after that, we conducted the third phase, which is the subjective assessment. So the subjective assessment is mostly on the qualitative data, on the sensing signals, compatibility, practicality, usefulness, and formalization. So here we ask the users, here we ask the respondent themselves, which is the elderly with dementia, as well as the nursing home staff, the nursing home manager, as well as the caregivers juga. Okay, and then after that, we conducted the fourth or the final test, which is the following navigation test, because kita tengok kat sini ada tak improvement. Okay, improvement for them to get familiarized with the system. Kita dah bagi diorang pakai for the first time in the second phase, dan kita jalankan sekali lagi but different route. Kita tengok sama ada tak improvement in terms of the ability to think, that they can recognize sensation lah. Okay, and then the further analysis been conducted. Okay, so there are some major reviews in terms of the punya comfort aspect, most preferred position. Okay, and the most preferred position is actually on the waistline. Okay, and then the recovery plan emphasize on the variability aspect. We have to somehow really take a good care in terms of their comfort, usability, as well as the aesthetic, and then the placement, appearance, dynamic sizing, and attachment. So daripada study ni, what's thing that we somehow learn most, that people with dementia, okay, because this is going to be like a directed ataupun kind of assistive kind of navigation tool, so it's not appropriate to be placed from waist and above. It should be placed on waist and below. But the most suitable or the most perfect area is actually on the waistline. Okay, sebab kalau kita pergi, I still remember when I was conducting this research, okay, back in the nursing home. Dekat Italy, there are so many nursing home, unlike here lah. Because, okay, when I went to conduct my research over there. When they ask the patients to do a simple walk for the exercise or something, they always tend to put their hand, the caregivers, they always tend to put their hands at the back side of the patient. They can macam tolak, tapi tolak bahagian pinggang. So I think this is something to do with the results of this experiment juga. So when we conducted the result, when we conducted the experiment, kita dapat tahu the most preferred position is actually on the abdominal area. Alright. Okay, and then of course, also we can see the effects of the learning process because we compare between the first navigation and the second navigation. And then, and what's most important is that the haptic signal helps to navigate. So walaupun dia tak rely on visual, walaupun tak rely on auditory, the haptic signal itself can help them to navigate. So that's quite a success lah. Okay, then after that, after the first usability testing, after the first prototype development, we conducted the further development. So we further develop the device to improve, and then we focus on the abdominal area. Macam ni lah. Okay, we took care of the aesthetic, the comfort and everything. Tapi of course, it's not looking as pleasing as supposed because we somehow really focused on the function, and it was developed in a very short period of time. So that's why dia tak adalah secantik mana kan, of course. Okay, and then in the second usability testing, dekat sini kita tengok, this is also the first phase, is on the orientation and training. Okay, dekat sini the first phase kita tengok sama ada the patient tu can accept the device or not, and then we would like to see how they are reacted towards the haptic stimuli, and then whether or not they can understand this haptic signal. So I have here a video for you to show that it was conducted back in, I think, 2016, okay, before I finished my PhD lah. So this was conducted in Milan. So let's have a look at this. Macam mana kita conducted the test. Okay, we place the device underneath the clothes. This is the nurse or the caregivers. It gives the direction, the instruction to the patient. Okay, it says like sesensi destra, tona destra, sesensi sinistra, jira sinistra. Meaning to say, kalau rasa sebelah kanan, ambil langkah sebelah kanan ataupun do the movement to the right. Kalau rasa sebelah kiri, pergi sebelah kiri. Right? So, meaning to say that this is this old lady, she's in quite moderate to severe stage of dementia. Okay, because dia dah penat, dia dah malas layan sebenarnya. Tapi they're quite participative lah. Okay, so meaning to say that they can sense and understand the signals. Okay, that is important, right? So next is the second phase. We conducted the navigation test, and then because we were not allowed to actually bring the
Jamil tolong tutup ya, dia punya mic tolong tutup.
Okay. Okay, right. So, and then after that, we conducted the following test. Okay, we conducted the navigation test. And because we were not allowed to actually bring the patients out of the nursing home, so we conducted inside the internal kind of compound. So they have this small park inside that compound. So we conducted the test with that, okay, with different participants. Of course, I mean the same participants, but the numbers has been reduced. Sebab ada participants yang tak lepas the first test tadi, okay. So this lady here, this lady in blue, it says, "Se non siamo niente, just go ahead." Maksudnya kalau tak ada apa-apa, jalan terus je. Kalau rasa kanan, ke kanan. Tapi this lady here, okay. Okay, this lady here, it misinterpret the signals. See, it says kalau tak rasa apa-apa, jalan terus je. Tapi dia ada masalah sikit untuk rasa dia punya sensation tu. So when it's given a few times, it tends to, I mean, she tended to actually make a roundabout, no, a U-turn, Sepatutnya dia kena ke kanan, tapi dia make U-turn because it sends that way, right? Alright, okay, let's moving on to the next one. Okay, so the second phase was the targeted assessment again, okay, and the number is maintained from 6 to 6 or so. And then here, kita nak tengok how the subjects perceive the device with detailed question mainly from the aspects of variability. Kita tanya, we ask the question towards the patient, of course with the help of the caregivers and the nurses, because first it was really difficult for me because I was not really good in Italian. I had to do some Google Translate and everything. And then the kind of question, okay, because these people, like macam kita juga, the older people, they have this dialect, they have this accent kan. So saya yang masa tu baru saja nak belajar bahasa Itali, lagilah tak faham the northern accent, the southern accent. So I have to ask the caregivers or nurses to actually help me out with the question. But they ask the question directly to the patients lah, okay. And then the interviews with the nursing homes, caregivers, managers and therapists to support the findings, okay. Okay, so and then what we can identify was in terms of the punya functionality. So the people ataupun the participant, they can subsequently sensing the haptic stimuli, and they can perform better if given sufficient training. Okay, in terms of the comfort, of course, some comfort and aesthetic issues was raised, and the device is comfortable, not necessarily noticeable, but not limited the movement and not cause any form of pain. So this is important. Okay, and the usefulness, the patients, they agreed with the device usefulness and willing to have it and use the device, and approve the possibility to be commercialized. We need to say if it is available in the market, they would buy and use it, right? So these are some of the challenges and possible solution. Okay, the main challenge here is that the studies on elderly or people with cognitive or artistic with health-related field, because like this study cannot be conducted alone, because as I mentioned, UCD punya concept itself, it involves many people, many disciplines together. So in this case, right, I had to get some feedbacks, I had to get some knowledge from the engineering, from the people with technology, programming, as well as the medical and neurosciences. Okay, and those are the possible solution for that lah. Right, don't want to go too much detail with that. Okay, it's almost 12. Yeah, it's almost. I think I will go a bit quickly from here. Right. So these are some of the examples of my students' work that is associated with the assistive technology as well, right? So this first one is wearable ankle device for hemiplegic stroke survivors. So this device is actually designed for people with stroke, and then she intended to actually use this device to help with the exercise during the post rehabilitation ataupun during the training. So people with stroke disease, so when they first been diagnosed with the disease, okay, we have to somehow help them to recover ataupun to regain dia punya normal capability as soon as possible. And I've been told by the medical expert that if you cannot regain your fully functional capacity within the 6 months of time, okay, you might not able to regain it after that. Okay, so this is conducted after ataupun during the rehabilitation session, but after the patient has been diagnosed with the disease. So this is about the dorsiflexon and plantar flexion exercise. So dorsiflexon dengan plantar flexion is about when you put your legs that way, you have to do this kind of exercise. So this is about it lah. Okay. And then the second one is the interactive design for smart TV for elderly. This is kind of attraction design for to connect between the children with their parents. So for example, in China, this is my student from China. In China, they are quite famous with WeChat instead of we have here WhatsApp, kan? So the connection when they get older, okay, the offspring or the children, they move out from the house they used to live in. But people in China, they spend a lot of time in front of TV. So this case study is about that, to connect between the offspring and the older people or the parents. Okay, we need to say that the social media or the communication application device in the phone can be somehow transmitted into their TV so that their parents can have a look at that. So meaning to say, it's quite interactive for, I mean, they can spend the time during the whole day watching the TV, but at the same time, when they get the message or video call or call from their children, they get to actually answer or do the interaction through the TV, the smart TV. This is what she proposed. Okay, and then this is another one, smart wheelchair for lower limb disabled children, specifically for children with physical disability, especially on the lower limb. So this is actually a design concept to help people with lower limb disability to have this sense of companionship, because children are growing up. Okay, they should be able to go to school, to make friends and everything, but somehow it has been weakened because they cannot go to the school, they cannot be socialized because of their difficulties, because of their disabilities. So this special wheelchair is designed to help them to regain the companionship. Even they are alone, they can have all the features in the smart wheelchair to help them gain the companionship. Okay, and then the second one is the final one is on the intelligent closed tool for new elderly. Okay, new elderly is actually a term to describe a new generation of elderly, because, for example, us, we are quite familiar with technology. Okay, we use technology quite a lot during these days. So when we get older, okay, when we get older, even though we are old, but we are so familiar with the use of technology. So in China, this is also conducted in China. In China, this new generation has become very popular. So the new elderly is compared to the traditional elderly, is that new elderly is the one are those who are actually familiar with the technology lah. So he designed this kind of intelligent closed tool to help again with the function and everything, and it can be monitored by their offspring. So this is something about the brief concept about this design idea lah, that use the UCD ataupun assistive technology kind of principle. Okay, for the conclusion, right? Just now I was mentioning about the differences between the spiral and iterative process. So the KUAT UCD is actually an iterative process, but it is in a form of spiral. So it's like the design, prototype, and evaluate. And by the end of the day, you have conducted several stages of assessment, several stages of experiment. It will come up with the result that benefits the users. Okay, but if it's not, it goes around the loops, but not on the actual loops. That's why it is called spiral. Okay, and as compared to other kind of design process, co-designing, participatory design, co-creation, is iteration, completely iteration, right? Okay, and the second one is on the evaluation in every phase. Of course, when you use the UCD approach, you have to consider that, you have to remember that the evaluation should take all the phases. Okay, kita ada banyak phases tadi. It should take a part in all the phases, and you have to make sure the users got involved in every stage. Okay, and then I got some of the questions from my student. When you conduct the UCD, can it be qualitative or quantitative? It can be actually both, or even mixed, because it depends on you what kind of research type do you want to go for. Okay, and what's not required. Okay, you don't actually need a specific kind of lab or equipment or facilities for you to conduct this UCD, because it can be anything. It can be conducted even in an open space, right? This is actually something to do with the this is something to do with the usability testing. And then I forgot to mention something. There is this technique called Wizard of Oz. Wizard of Oz, even though it sounds like coming from the science fiction movies or something, but Wizard of Oz is actually a technique, a scientific technique used when the technology or design is not yet ready. But the Wizard of Oz used for you to imitate the actual function or works of that device. So for example, you have the device that the function is to help the people to navigate around the area. Then that is the device function. But the device is not yet fully developed. So you use the Wizard of Oz technique to imitate the function. So you have someone behind you to control the function. So it's controlled using the app lah. So that's why it is called Wizard of Oz, right? Okay, and then assistive technology, of course, there are some things that been described by WHO about the unmet global needs for assistive technology. Like for example, like millions of people with low vision who do not have access to assistive products for low vision, and millions of people who need a wheelchair, and only 5% to 15% of those in need who have access to one. Okay, and then millions of people globally experiencing hearing loss. Hearing aids production currently makes less than 10%. So there's so many unmet global needs for assistive technology, as been mentioned by WHO. So meaning to say here that the opportunity for us as a design or as a researcher to explore further in this kind of field is really vast. It's big. Okay, if you have the passion, you have to, if you have the knowledge in this kind of thing, you can explore, because there's so many unmet needs for this specific scope. Okay, and then also the challenges. Okay, challenges of course in terms of policy, the acts and everything, set of products, provision, personnel, and assistive technology within the university health coverage. So these are the some of the that I think I don't have much time to elaborate further. Okay, and then finally, the design for special needs. Okay, and just now I mentioned about this correlation between the design principle. I mentioned about the inclusive design, but inclusive design is also been described as design for all ataupun universal design. Okay, it is used interchangeably. Okay, and then somehow the words ataupun the definitions are somehow similar, but it is used according to the region. For example, universal design or UD is been used in USA, and then it's been forwarded to Japan and the Pacific Rim. Okay, then after that, inclusive design. Inclusive design was developed ataupun was introduced in Europe. It was actually pioneered by UK. So that's why they use different kind of the terminology. But somehow these terms or these terminologies, design principles are used to describe about the diversity, disability, and environment. So the main ultimate goal is actually to include more people as much as possible into the whole design process, or into the whole design decision, right? Okay, and then designing for disability, you have to somehow think about the create better guidance or something like that, because there is actually this apa ni, dekat Malaysia we have this one act, okay, that it talk about this disability. Okay, this called Person with Disability Act, and it was developed in 2008, and the act was Act 685. Okay, and then there is this new revision to that, additional to that Malaysian policy or Malaysian Act, that it requires all the technology providers or system providers to not add additional charge if they were to include this disabled person. Meaning to say, if you are developing a technology, a system or devices for people with for all the people, and you want to include people with disability, you cannot put extra charge. You cannot put additional cost to it. So that's in the act lah. All right. So with that, I think I have covered most of it. So thank you so much. If you have any questions, we can proceed with the Q&A session after this. And yeah, you can find me at my email, rosalam@upm.edu.my, and also you can find my publication at the my Google Scholar. You just can type my name, Rosalam Che Me. Right, thank you so much, Dr. Che Me. Sorry for taking your time.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Rosalam. That was very massive information about the UCD. Okay, this is a very good lecture, but before I moving forward to taking any question from our viewers, I just maybe summarize a few things here, and then maybe reflect back to what that has been done, or in conjunction with what Muzium or USM currently is doing. Okay, basically, talk Dr. Rosalam hari ini membincangkan mengenai UCT, okay, and I was very interested dengan explanation on ISO, okay. It's an international organization for standardization when talk about UCD, okay, because me myself personally dengan Dr. Najib at USM, kami pun buat research on disabled people, but we don't really now we are very grateful to hear that there is a standard ISO for this, okay. Because previously we just go and do what we think that within our scope, but it is good for us to know that there is an ISO standard to tell you, okay, this is where you should touch, this is where you should cover, and this is where you should stop looking at it. Okay, so this is a very interesting part first at the ISO. Okay, of course it will be very very informative. There is a lot of talk there, but then it's a very good thing to know about the ISO. Okay, now come back to the UCD, where as has been concluded by Dr. Rosalam. Okay, the UCD itself is actually a iteration and spiral process, meaning that it's a berulang tapi dia tak kembali pada konten yang asal. It's a very we try to do the for example the text, it has to be very repeated till we get to the conclusion. So that is the main gist of the UCD, where we have to put our focus on understanding people. Okay, so basically, as you can see right now, UCD is actually a design for the specific purpose, for the specific group of people that need something. Okay, now I also interested with the where Dr. Rosalam talk about the expert and particular participatory mindset, the jadual there, the where the map where you put the where is the UCD, where is that. So it's kind of informative for us, actually for the design research. Okay, so basically the talk today, okay, I don't know, maybe for some of the designers out there, they might be a bit clueless, because they always thought that design is just design work just take a pen and draw, but no. Okay, the design process actually is try to solve the problem that we face. Okay, so this is why the UCD is a very important as for us for design research to come up with a design solution for the appropriate for the exact focus group. Okay, now some of you guys may be quite confused. Kenapa kuliah atas talian MGTF ni is looking forward to this kind of kuliah, I mean this kind of topic. Okay, so let just me explain this, or maybe it will be a promo. Okay, now MGTF is moving forward to we try to breaking the boundaries to make it our museum as a museum universiti pendidikan, yang mana bukan saja dipandang sebagai kalau sebelum ni kita tengok pada rata-rata pandangan umum, museum ni hanya tempat untuk melihat satu artifact. Museum relate back to something yang lama, something yang culture, something yang something yang has to be preserved. Where yes, we still do that, but then we want to along the process we want to break the boundaries, and we try to to celebrate the combination of art and science. Okay, like what Dr. Rosalam is doing right now. Okay, Dr. Rosalam background is IDE, industrial design. So most part of the world, IDE is considered as an art process, okay, where it involves the design process, the sketch process, the visual process to come up with something. But what we actually see here right now, Dr. Rosalam is also combining the scientific research, okay, trying to comprehend what have been a big problem for certain group of people, okay, for this case for the elderly people, Okay, and then from there, a very critical research has been done, and then combined together with a lot of disciplinary, a lot of discipline, as we can see in the case study where Dr. Rosalam also involved with system designers, to do to come up with a system design for the EPST, something like that. And it's all involves so many people. So that is what we're trying to celebrate right now, the combination of art and science. And by meaning that we are celebrating all people from any respective disciplinary to come together and produce something. So this is what we are trying to do, and this is what MGTF also are looking forward to it. Okay, and coming back to talk about Dr. Rosalam, I was thinking that maybe the next time we need to take this session. Maybe we can have another session for Dr. Rosalam tell us about the existing project that has been done. Okay, I was very interested to know more about the assistive device for the elderly, dementia people. Okay, so it's very interesting to know how that things work, and I also have got a few more questions for that. Okay, now sorry, I don't berapa. Now I think we can take the question right now. So I want to go with a question that posted in the Facebook by by Mr. Muhammad Hafizul Hilmi. Okay, I'm sorry, it doesn't fit that it's a doctor or what. Okay, the question is, perhaps this is a general question. Is there any extensive study under user-centered design approach that involves Down syndrome and users, or is it generally discussed, or is it generally classified under disabled person? I believe Down syndrome person has specific characteristics and limitation. So, Dr. Rosalam, how do you think? You just want to know, is it Down syndrome people also is considered as can be studied under UCD?
Right. Okay. UCD is like other types of design methods. It's actually an approach for doing research, kan? Okay, we have, like I mentioned, you have participatory design, you have co-designing. Okay, I think many of us here who do the design research, they are they're quite familiar with other kind of design method. So UCD is one of the methods. So the subject or the population or the targeted user of that specific component of research can be anyone. Okay, so UCD is about putting the users in the center of design process. Okay. Okay, for example, I have this question by my students as well. What is the main differences between UCD and participatory design? Because both of them involve users, kan? Maksudnya UCD kita letakkan user in the center of design process, but participatory design pun kita letak user in the design process. But okay, in UCD kita in participatory design we get the users, we get the actual people to involve in the design process. Maksudnya dia kena masuk sekali dalam design process. So that's why they call it co-designing. Tapi UCD, we just focus on the problems, we just focus on the scope of task of that user. So kalau contohnya macam people with Alzheimer disease, okay, and also another example is people with Down syndrome, can you actually ask them to get involved in the design process? This is a question for you. Okay, can you actually ask them to, can you actually give them any kind of sketching tools, pen or paper to help you in the design process? We cannot. That's why UCD is used, that UCD approach is used to help develop something for that specific user. So yes, it can be in any kind of disabilities. It can be for autism, it can be for cerebral palsy, it can be for children with Down syndrome, any kind of disability or non-disability, or special needs or non-special needs. So the users can be variety, can be diverse, but you have to understand the core principle of the UCD first. Once you understand the core principle, then you can be applied to any kind of research or any kind of population or types of research. Okay.
All right, thank you, Dr. Rosalam. I think that answered the question. So I'm going to move on to the second question from Asfar Nisa Muhammad Ali here. Okay, the question is, how is the process of assessing the assessing the technology when we do design? What if there is still no technology available?
Right. Okay. I actually have indirectly answered that question before. If you remember about when I mentioned about Wizard of Oz. Okay. The Wizard of Oz technique was used to actually, it's being used to actually imitate the actual function of the technology when the technology is not yet ready. Okay. If you have, like, for example, a device for you as a communicator, okay, what is this? Something like, okay, a communication prompter. Okay. I always relate with this disabled people. Okay. You have this device that can actually help you to prompt what you're going to say later on. Because, for example, people with the Alzheimer's disease, they have this problems of lupa-lupa, they're forgetting things. So sometimes when they talk, they tend to actually forget what they're going to say next. So this device is designed, for example, this is example, this device is actually designed to help them as a speech prompter. Okay, the device is not yet developed, tapi you have the technology, you have developed the system to imitate the real function of it, but it's controlled by the experimenter. So that's how you actually develop the actual device, the actual technology later on. So of course, any device or any technology has not been developed before. Kan? Semua teknologi tak pernah wujud. But you have to do some sort of usability testing, some sort of experiment and whatnot for you to develop a new one. And it came along with the process. There's so many processes that you have to go through. And by answering that question, if you don't have any existing technology as yet, you can use the Wizard of Oz technique. Because Wizard of Oz technique is to imitate the real function without having the actual function as yet. Faham tak?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Rosalam. I go with the next question from Johnson Johnson Oliveraju Victor. Okay, so the question is, what is the role of machine learning in assistive technology?
Machine learning is like the artificial intelligence as well, right? So I think the function or the features of that technology can be anything. You can add any most advanced technology or any lowest kind of technology into your design development, because as I mentioned just now, assistive technology can be as simple as no technology, low tech and high tech. So I think machine learning or artificial intelligence is one of the things or one of the components that you can categorize into the high tech punya section, kan? So it can be applied. So in terms of how it can be, how it works ataupun what's the function, as long as the function that you add into your device or into your technology can help the users. Okay, if you're focusing on the people with disability, if you device, if the technology or features that you embed into your system, as long as it can help the function of the users, okay, as long as the users can use your device, then it serves the purpose. Then it is successful. So macam saya cakap tadi, it can be any kind of features, it can be kind of technology. So as long as it serves the purpose to meet the requirements of the users. Itu saja. As simple as that. So it can be machine learning, it can be assistive technology, it can be any kind of more advanced technology which I'm not really familiar with. Okay, I bet machine learning is something to do with the artificial intelligence. So the function is still the same. It's still the same as long as it serves the purpose of the device to help the users. Okay, as long as it serves the purpose to serve the users, then it is successful. Okay, the integration is successful.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Rosalam. I also get this one comment from Facebook. Well, it's not actually a question, but I think it's good enough to get your attention here. By Ahmad Hilmi Muhammad. He said that I'm looking forward for exoskeleton design which get integrated with wheelchair. So I think maybe Dr. Rosalam has maybe some overview, maybe some future planning for this.
Right. I think I am co-supervising a student who have this, who's actually focusing on the, she's doing a Master's of Science in Industrial Design, and her research is about providing an assistive technology for people or children with cerebral palsy. And they have, the focus of her research is to develop a device that can help them to sit down and stand up, and integrate that device towards the furniture. So I think it's something to do with that as well. And then, but yet that system or research or design concept has not been fully developed because it's still under proposal stage. But yeah, I'm looking forward as well. If you were to collaborate or something, it's be something really nice to do together.
Okay. Alright, thank you Dr. Rosalam. I'll go for the next question. Banyak tu question. I nak tanya soalan tak sempat lagi. Okay, the next question is
Well,
for
public-
from Dr. Najib. Okay, Dr. Najib Sadi. Okay, he got two questions actually. The first question is, how do you apply ethical content in your research process? I mean, while you doing the research, that's the first question. The second question is, what is your biggest challenge or obstacle when handling research project involving the disabled? And it's actually three. And how do you cope and rectify if there any issues occur?
All right. I will answer the second and third question first. Okay. And if you can notice in my last slides, in a few last slides, I mentioned about the major challenges and the solutions, right? So the main challenges that I faced before, this is based on what I conducted, the research I conducted before. This is based on the actual experience. Okay. I was actually a foreigner, and Italian is not my main language, of course. And I got to actually do the experiment towards the people with Alzheimer's disease. So if you can put somehow the level of difficulties of dealing with users or dealing with participants, people with elderly is like this level, and then people with Alzheimer's is like even higher than that, because they have the problems of communication, and they have the problems of communicating with each other, and they have a problem to ambulate, to move around the area. Because how can I do such research that require them to give some response, to ask them to use the device if they cannot be responsive? So those are the challenges, the big challenges. But if you were to conduct something, research like this, you need to have the assistance. You need to get the help with the caregivers, for example. Okay, I conducted my research in the nursing homes. Okay, you get the assistance, you get the help by their caregivers, the nursing home staff. Okay, the nursing home managers. They will do a lot for you. Okay, you need to get the help from them because you are not the expert in that specific field. Okay, you need to get the assistance. All right. Yeah, and then the first question about the ethical issue, of course. I think for us designers, we are not really familiar with this kind of ethical clearance ataupun ethical application, kan? But when you deal with human being, especially with people with disability, you have to get the ethical clearance before any experiments or any detection being made. That is really important. Even if you somehow, like for example, like some of my students not in Malaysia, for example in China, when I ask them, okay, are you going to apply for the ethical clearance for you to conduct your research? And then they said, I have the access to that specific nursing home, I have the access to that institution, so I don't think I need to get that permission. No, it doesn't work that way. Even though you have the access, even though you are like your owner of that place, you have to apply for the ethical clearance for you to conduct research towards the human being, let alone people with disability, because this is the most important thing. And then also when you have conducted your research, when you collected all the data, you will publish your letter, you will publish your work later on, right? So in your publication, you have to somehow state that, okay, you have to acknowledge that, okay, this research has been conducted and has been declared the ethical clearance by this. So then only you get the high chance for you to be published. So I think even though we are not familiar, but when you conduct the research in this field, you have to get the ethical clearance. Okay.
All right, thank you, Dr. Rosalam. Talking about ethical approval. Okay, just for your information, it's not a new thing today. Okay, everybody, it's not a new thing today. Everybody who want to conduct a research which involve human, they will need to apply for the ethical approval. Okay, and for myself, in USM, with the most of us, when we doing the research, we also need to apply the ethical approval. And in fact, both of us have been appointed as one of the assessor for ethical approval. There are many assessors in USM for ethical approval, so there is not anything. Everybody has to do the ethical approval. This information is quite valuable for our students, who intend to do a study. They need to identify whether the research could involve certain human, certain group of people. So yes, they need to apply for the ethical approval. Okay, I think I'm going next with my question. Okay, Dr. Rosalam, throughout your project, okay, we have this. You have produced quite a lot of prototype. So my question is, do you have any collaboration with people in your field? I mean, people who might be interested to produce your product, your design, and if there is, how do you approach them, or is it just a different way? They approach you, or you approach them, something like that?
Right. That's a very interesting question. Yes, we are designers. We are in the design field, and we are like basically talk about the intellectual properties, about the protection, and the potential for it to be commercialized. That is what we do, right? So I think that question is really valid. Okay, when I was doing my PhD, okay, this is related to my experience also. I don't know, maybe it's a bit different from the way people think over there, because over there, like, they are quite advanced as compared to us in some ways, right? Okay. In Italy, in Milan, especially Milan is actually a metropolitan city in Italy. It is not the capital city, but the most developed city in Italy, right? That's where the rich people lives, and that's where the famous people and the technologies are, right? Okay, so when I was doing my research last time, my supervisors with the team, they invited people over to get involved with the research development process. So that's where the stage where my supervisors with the team invite the people from the industry to have a look into this design concept for for the potential to be commercialized later on. So of course, right, as we as designers, you have to somehow think about the protection first, right? So I actually agree, ataupun I actually willing to share what I shared just now, because that design has been patented back in Polyme sebenarnya, and it has been patented as a utility model. Utility model dia sama je macam patent, cuma dia kurang sikit claims lah. Okay, kalau kita letakkan dia punya as a ranking, you have a patent, dan bawah tu ada industry design, you have to copyright kan. Utility model dia tak jauh beza daripada patent. The difference is on the claims, right? So it's been protected. Okay, bila dah balik Malaysia, okay, I continue the development of that prototype with the similar kind of topic with another grant, and I have the actually intention to go further. But the steps are there. You have to protect first. Okay, once the technology is developed, kita protect dulu. Go for the highest possible protection. Okay, the highest possible protection is something to do with the enforcement lah. Kalau you apply for patent, it's the larger enforcement kan. And then to involve the industry, maybe it is something to do with your effort as well, ataupun your self promotion. Like macam what we doing now. Okay, actually I'm conducting this one, boleh nak promote juga kat sini kan, because I just finished my attachment in the company called Dream Age, okay, for my CEO at faculty punya program. So after I finished that attachment, I was asked to actually bring back a collaboration project between the university and the industry. So what I propose is actually to bring further the project ataupun the research from the UPM, from the university level, to be bring further into commercialization. So we get the industry involved, and they get to choose which projects are potential for them to be commercialized. So that thing is somehow the way for us to get industry involved for the next level lah, for the commercialization. That's what I'm doing. That's the idea lah. Tapi that depends on the authority, that depends on the PTJ, it depends on the faculty and university kan. Sometimes you need to get the approval and agreement from that bureaucracy dulu for you to agree to bring people inside to see what's happening in your internal punya aspect. Sebab takut sometimes people are really worried about their sense of belonging of that invention. Dia tak nak orang lain tahu kan. Kita tak nak orang lain tahu, satu, but that's why you have to apply for protection. Tapi kalau sampai sudah, kalau you just letak je dekat tempat yang sama, sampai sudah kita pun takkan benefit others by not bring it further into the next level, which is like, for example, commercialization kan. Kalau tak, dia akan jadi just waste of time, waste of money, because it's going to be just one of the research that been done by university. Okay, when I was doing my attachment last time, people, I mean, I've been asked a lot by managers, by my CEO, is like, what happened to this research in the university? Apa jadi sebenarnya? We have so many good invention, good research, okay, good patterns, tapi tak ada satu pun yang commercialized. So I think it's something to do with the policy of the university as well. Okay, to allow industry to get involved with this kind of decision for the project to be commercialized. Okay, and then of course we have the authority university macam technology transfer office, like in EPM we have this Putra Science Park that take care of this IP pattern and everything to be commercialized. And then we have this business hub, okay, like university we have this Inno Hub and the business punya entity inside university that can help you in terms of that. Okay, right.
Alright, thank you Dr. Rosalam. It's very interesting to listen
Dr.
from your
Jamil.
side. Yeah.
Boleh saya menyampuk?
Sila Prof.
Boleh. Sekejap saya nak keluarkan muka saya. Assalamualaikum. Dr. Rosalam, apa khabar?
Assalamualaikum.
Terima kasih banyak-banyak lah ya kerana sudi untuk kongsikan kuliah Dr. Rosalam tu. Saya belajar banyaklah hari ini. Saya ada 3 soalan. Anggap saya seorang yang di luar daripada bidang doktor lah ya. Soalan saya yang pertama, projek case example yang Dr. Rosalam tunjuk yang dilakukan di Itali itu, adakah itu sudah dikomersialkan ataupun masih prototype sahaja?
Okay, seperti yang saya cakap tadi, kita baru patentkan saja because when I was doing my PhD, that authority of that invention was actually belong to that university over there. So saya tak boleh nak bawa balik walaupun saya adalah inventor, tapi saya tak ada full authorship of that invention. So if I were to go for the next level untuk commercialkan, that will be the work by that university, by Polyme lah. So saya tak boleh sangkut itu.
Okay. So itu menarik juga ya, dia punya isu dia berkenaan ownership, copyright dan juga patent tu namanya under institusi ataupun pereka. Itu satu perkara yang saya rasa penting untuk diketahui. Soalan saya yang kedua, sekiranya ianya dikomersialiskan, kita ada R&D dan kita ada C, ada 2 C, satu commercialization, yang kedua C dia community. Dan saya curious ya, apakah economic income bracket orang yang akan gunakan? Mungkin demografinya sudah ada, tetapi mungkin secara spesifiknya income bracket dia, adakah ianya sesuatu yang kos dia hanya mampu dimiliki oleh orang yang mempunyai income bracket yang tinggi atau sederhana, atau untuk orang-orang yang orang-orang miskin, B40 dan sebagainya. Ada tak itu diambil pertimbangan, dia punya costing kalau dikomersialiskan lah?
Yep, I mean that's a very good question, Prof. Yes, saya rasa Prof dah biasa kot yang kerja-kerja commercialization macam ni. That's why your question is like really valid lah, of course. I mean, even when we are in the process of application, okay, in the process of applying for patent, for example, those are the things that been asked for you to fill up. Kan? Dia akan tanya the cost implication, the target user, the target collaborative industry, dengan siapa yang nak buat semua ni. Those are the questions that been asked. Tapi in my case, I haven't gone into that detail as yet. Okay, tapi alright. Tapi kalau if we can somehow, okay, for example, I have my colleagues here. I think dia dekat sini. For example, I have my colleague, because I saw his name just now. My colleague, he developed this kind of assistive, he developed kind of medical tools, okay, for medical purposes. And then he works with, he got the grant from Taraju. And then he worked with this from Maniaga. Okay, so when Dr. Saiful here, Dr. Saiful, I was mentioning about him. Okay, He's famous with the theory of all. Nanti cakap pasal tu lain.
Dr.
Okay.
Saiful mana? Dr. Saiful Unimas ke? Dr. Saiful mana ni?
UPM yang ni ada kamera ni tengah buka ni.
Okay, alright.
Okay, so his project is something to do with that, and then I'm talking about that because with the injection from the grant from the industry, we can somehow make it accessible for people at large. Kalau dia ada injection from government supaya boleh control dia punya harga, that would be great lah. Okay, it can jadi part of the medical equipment, it can be part of medical tools dekat hospital ataupun nursing home. So if that happen, harganya kita boleh control. Tapi kalau dia fully commercialized by an individual, by a company, then we cannot control the price. It can be as high as that can be owned by T20 ataupun it can be low, it can be owned by B40. That depends on that. Okay, macam virus lah, vaksin kan. Dia tak pakai vaksin.
Yeah.
Kadang people tak nak ambil the authorship of that. Dia bagi free saja. So kalau dia dia declare the patent, they can make millions out of it. So that depends on that juga lah.
Ya, okay. Soalan yang ketiga, saya tertarik dengan kuadran tadi. Iaitu kuadran kalau atas bawah dia itu design led compared to research led, kemudian expert centered compared to participant centered. Bagaimana kita meletakkan kegiatan kita itu dalam kuadran itu? Tadi you tunjukkan user centered UCD, di mana UCD dalam kuadran tu. Adakah peletakan itu arbitrary ataupun it is based on quantitative measurement, atau it's just arbitrary, you sort of put it here and there? Saya tertarik, saya tertarik apa terjadi sekiranya sesuatu itu betul-betul di tengah. Betul-betul sebab kuadran ada macam-macam kan. Malah saya bila saya jadi menjadi hakim juri untuk pertandingan art pun saya ada buat kuadran saya. Kemudian dia akan membentuk satu diamond, sama ada diamond itu sengit ke kanan atau diamond itu sengit ke kiri. Tetapi ada masanya diamond tu perfect. Dia betul-betul kat tengah. Even the learning quadrant also, learning style quadrant also ada begitu. Siapa yang dapat dia panggil kite yang seperti diamond di tengah-tengah tu, dia memang perfect lah. Tapi yang itu dia ada dia ada method soalan kendiri yang kita kena isi, dan quantitatively kita boleh plot di atas kuadran tu dan kita akan tahu kita punya learning style tu di mana. Jadi saya curious, yang kuadran tu adalah adakah ada quantitative measurement method ataupun is just arbitrary?
Okay, right, Prof. That's a very interesting question coming from Prof lah. Okay, very interesting. Okay, just for a little disclaimer, that was not developed by me. As I mentioned, it was being taken by this actually a design professor. She is actually a design professor in one of the universities in USA, but she's not actually a designer. She doesn't have a design background. She's actually in psychology. So she came up with this quadrant, okay, that based on this four direction. The top one is design led and research led, user led, and participant mindset. And so it's based on that idea, based on the principle of that philosophy itself. So she looked at this philosophy of the design principles. Okay, then dia position kat situ based on that. So dia tak adalah specific kind of qualitative or quantitative research done, okay, for the placement of that. Tapi it's just based on that principle. Okay, for example, kalau macam Prof cakap dia betul, dia tak ada betul-betul design principles yang betul kat tengah, because it's like overlap kan. Tapi the most design principles that have coverage of all that specific area adalah user-centered design, sebab dia almost ada sikit dekat user design led, dia ada sikit dekat expert mindset, tapi mostly dekat expert mindset dan research led. So it's actually research based kind of design approach, tapi dia letakkan user as a core. So that's why dia dekat bawah tu. Okay, and then it's opposite to the design led and participant mindset. Yang ni lebih kepada generative tools, participant design, Scandinavian design, co-designing, co-creation, itu dekat luar sana. Maksudnya User tu adalah diletakkan stakeholders tu as a designer juga. Okay.
Ya.
Stakeholder tu jadi designer. Tapi dalam ni,
Ya.
user tu jadi expert reviewer. Dia tak design pun. Like for example, if you're designing for special tools, okay, toddlers with HFMD, okay, toddlers for autism for example. Kita tak boleh nak minta toddlers tu yang ada penyakit, yang ada masalah ni untuk bantu sama buat design, tak boleh kan? But we need to actually involve them in the research process by letting them to actually get involved in the process in the usability testing for example, to use this device. Tapi kita tak boleh minta feedback, tak boleh minta mereka design sama. So that's why di sebelah sini. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Itu saja. Terima kasih.
I answer
Banyak-banyak.
the question.
Okay, baik. Terima kasih Prof. Asno. Terima kasih atas soalan yang sangat menarik. Untuk kita semua, Prof. Asno bidang dia adalah bidang media and arts, electronics. Okay. Tapi Prof. Asno juga ada soalan yang sangat terbuka dengan Transdisciplinary. So it was a good thing to have his support dengan the public, and he's very interesting with this talk, which is a good sign. Okay, so kita pun dah sampai pukul 1 tengah hari dia. It is a very long lecture, but I still hope that if there any viewer yang ada soalan, mungkin direct terus, sila boleh buka mic lah.
I mean, if there is any further clarification, further requirements or inquiries, you can always reach me through my email lah kot, kalau ada.
Okay, I think if there is no one else, tak ada people yang nak bagi soalan, I think we can conclude our talk today. Okay, but sebagai penutup I would say that this is very interesting talk. Okay, it's a wonderful talk, very engaging, and we have a lot of questions coming in, a lot of comment. Okay, so I was hoping that in the next future, okay, maybe this is not this is the start where we start to maybe have a mutual collaboration in the future, okay, because I can see that personally for myself, I think Dr. Rosalam and me are in the same direction lah. Yeah, sebab I pun buat research something to do with disabled dengan Dr. Najib di USM. Okay, so it's very interesting. It's very interesting and it's very good to hear a lot of things from Dr. Rosalam here. And I was hoping that maybe in the future we can maintain our relationship and maybe we can assess this further, okay, dengan kawan-kawan di PM sana. So we are inviting you all to make a collaboration with us. Okay, as I said before, currently we try to evolve the MGTF as a museum university penyelidikan, and we have a lot of planning to do. Okay, we have a lot of vision to do. Okay, which somehow involved with the transdisciplinary art and science. In fact, we have this research unit here at MGTF, which is called Transdisciplinary Research Unit in ArtScience, ataupun dalam akronimnya Trust at MGTF. Okay, so I think that's all for today. Dr. Rosalam, do you have any last word?
Yeah, I think I've said it all. Thank you so much, Dr. Jamil, representing MGTF for having me. I will be more than willing to go over there, because I think it's the last time we went to Penang. I think I talked to my wife. My wife is from Penang as well, and my kampung is from Penang. My kampung is actually in Tasik Glugo. Okay, and I haven't been back to Penang since.
Itu sebelah kawasan I tau. Tasik Glugo sebelah ni. I live in Kepala Batas.
Dekat Bertam.
Yes. Nanti bolehlah balik. Nanti kalau buat balik ke Tasik Glugo, do call us and we can have a talk.
That's why I mean, if you invite physically, I would be more than willing to go, right? And for others as well, I hope that what I shared today, I'm not really the expert in this field, but I just shared what I know lah, basically kan. So I hope with the share session that I did can somehow give beneficial to the audience lah. And if you have any question, you have any further comments or any further collaborative opportunities, you can always drop email or ataupun text to me to my WhatsApp number lah. You can get my number too from Dr. Jamil nanti. Okay, thank you so much again.
Right. Okay, thank you very much everyone. Okay, if you guys maybe repeat balik apa session ni, you can go to MGTF Facebook. We have recorded there, and after this we also will upload this recorded version to our YouTube channel. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone. Stay safe. Okay, I hope you guys enjoy this talk today. Okay, and have fun. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you
Terima kasih
so
semua.
much. Assalamualaikum. Have a good day. Stay safe. Right.